Welcome and thank you for tuning in. Today is a very sad day for tennis fans across the world, and frankly it's a huge loss for sport in general, following the news that Roger Federer has announced he will retire from ATP professional men's tennis following the Laver Cup to take place in London. Federer was the first man to win 20 Grand Slam singles titles on the ATP Tour. He won Wimbledon a record 8 times, which to many, including myself, is considered the holy grail in all of professional tennis. And he holds the record for most consecutive weeks at world number 1 with a whopping 237 weeks in a row at the top spot. But Matt Zemek, I think, really said it best. When people look back on Roger Federer's career, they're not going to remember the matches and the titles he won as much as how they felt watching Roger Federer play. He captured hearts and minds with his style, his inimitable style of practically gliding all over the court, making his movement so effortless, the way he hit the ball so cleanly with both his forehand and one-handed backhand. Interestingly enough, Roger Federer never had the fastest serve on the ATP Tour, but he was always one of the most difficult players to break because his placement and his precision made him so challenging to go up against when it came time for Federer to serve. He was a joy to watch for such a long time. There was a huge push in 2013 for Federer to hang it up. Federer did not listen to the critics. He went on and continued to win slam titles. His performance in the 2017 Australian Open final against Rafa Nadal particularly stands out to me, and so many of the greatest tennis matches ever played included Roger Federer. For many, including myself, the greatest tennis match of all time is the 2008 Wimbledon final, and that really represented not necessarily a changing of the guard, but a transition of Roger Federer being the undisputed king of tennis to, at that point, having some incredible competition, which of course turned into the big three with Federer, Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. But it is important to keep in mind, for better or for worse, for Federer fans, that Federer did have a losing head-to-head against Nadal and Djokovic, but Nadal and Joker will never, ever have the period of sustained dominance that Roger Federer enjoyed between 2004 and 2008. Federer seemed invincible on all surfaces with the exception of clay, of course. By then, Nadal had asserted his dominance at the French Open. But Federer was just a winning machine, and frankly, I got tired of it. I got bored with it. But once Nadal and Djokovic caught up with Federer, interestingly enough, that was when I really, grew to appreciate Federer's genius, his greatness, and the more time went on, the more I learned about what a great human being Roger Federer is as well. I'm kind of paraphrasing this quote from Sergei Stakhovsky, but Stakhovsky said that Roger Federer is proof that you can be a decent human being and win things. And perhaps what he was alluding to was the past of tennis, where players like John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, they won a lot of trophies, but they did not always exhibit the pure class and sportsmanship that Federer so consistently exhibited on the ATP Tour. A lot of people forget that Federer had temper problems in his junior career, but he certainly grew and evolved over time, both emotionally and as a player. You know, he really reinvented himself later in his career by learning how to shorten the points and serve and volley effectively. I give a lot of credit to Ivan Lubicic for being such a great influence for Federer in the later stages of his career. But nevertheless, I think any tennis fan has to be very sad to hear this announcement from Roger Federer. He was such an ideal ambassador for the sport, and in sports we oftentimes find incredible athletes make big mistakes. They engage in all different forms of misconduct, but Roger Federer is as close as it gets to squeaky clean. I mean, the work he's done with the Roger Federer Foundation for Switzerland and for underprivileged children in Africa is simply incredible. The players across the ATP Tour loved Federer. It had to be really tough to play Federer because, you know, he would always be super nice to you, but then he would go out on the court and dismantle you. It's a lot easier to go up against someone you hate, but Roger Federer is simply the type of person that cannot be hated. I mean, he's just class personified, and you know, he practically won everything there is to win in tennis. So even as Rafael Nadal now has more slam titles than Federer, and Novak Djokovic more than likely will break his 20 slam deadlock with Federer, Roger Federer has a very unique legacy that I would say no other athlete in all of sports can have, in terms of just being so successful, being so universally beloved over a really, really extended period of time. Tennis is such a brutal sport in which the vast majority of players are washed up by the time they hit 30. I mean, Andy Roddick retired right at 30. He was dominated for practically his entire career by Roger Federer, as so many other players were, and Federer gets to go out at the age of 41. He played over 1,500 professional matches, which is kind of mind-boggling, frankly, when you consider how challenging the sport of men's professional tennis really is. But Federer will be sorely missed. I will always be grateful for all the tennis I've been able to enjoy watching Roger Federer, and certainly wish him all the best in his next chapter. Thank you so much for tuning in, and if you've watched for this long, you might as well subscribe to my channel.